We are back for part 3 of the 100-hour series. This time, double touches. Now, if you haven't seen the other 2 videos, they are linked in the description. I highly recommend you go watch them afterwards if you're looking to improve your air dribbling or flip resets. Before we get into today's video, if you enjoy the content and want to see more, then make sure to subscribe to the channel to keep up with me and my weekly uploads. All of my socials are linked in the description if you want to keep up with me there as well. And make sure to let me know what mechanic to work on next using the poll in the top right hand corner. Now then, if you don't know the series, I show you the progress over the course of 100 hours and then we finish off with a tutorial. In this case, we will be doing the same still. However, the tutorial side of things might be a little bit longer than previous videos. Although I think double touches can be summed up pretty simply, there are a few different things I still need to cover. So jumping straight into it, the first 10 hours I worked on the setup, like I always do. But the setup is the same as a flip reset or air dribble. For this reason, I only really spent a few hours on the actual setup part and focused a lot more on that first contact. I had done some research beforehand and had learned that a lot of people tend to stick to the wall after making this touch on the ball and then jumping off to make contact in the air. So this is then what I practiced for the first 10 hours. And I'm gonna be honest, it got really boring. I felt like I knew what I was doing as double touches have been something I've been practicing on and off throughout my years of playing. So this is just a quick message from me to you. If you're new to double touches, watch the whole video, take notes on key parts at the end, and you'll probably end up mastering this after a few hours max. I put in 100 hours to try break it all down so you guys don't have to put anywhere near that amount of time in. And you certainly won't have to spend the first 10 hours just working on the first touch and the setup. Anyway, next up was the 50-hour mark. Here I worked to become consistent with my follow through from the wall. I spent a lot of time on the first contact coming off the wall and how to hit the ball. I remembered about 2 months ago I had a coach talk to me about double touches. He mentioned that if you were behind the halfway mark, you'd want to flip into the ball to give it power and some distance between yourself and the ball. If you are over the halfway point, you would just want to boost into the ball a little bit to give it some speed towards the backboard. If you were to flip into it, oftentimes you'll find you'll hit it too hard or you'll send your card too close to the goal to make a good touch afterwards. So, taking this into account, I did some experimentation of my own and yeah, I pretty much agree. There are, however, times we want to beat someone to the ball quickly or put it over a defender with some speed, which is when you'll have an easier time flipping into the ball from a close distance. If you try to get a softer touch and your opponent is already challenging the ball, there's a chance they could read the touch and intercept, which then leaves you taken out of the play. A few tips to give at this point is when you're first working on double touches, you want to work without air roll first. Just come off the wall, flip into the ball and then adjust your car as you fly towards the ball. By not using air roll, you stop yourself from overcomplicating something that really isn't that hard. A lot of people, including myself, like to start by constantly rotating while in the air. This doesn't help you at all and makes things much harder to learn from the start. I suggest avoiding this when you can. Now, the hardest part I find is reading the bounce. Once you understand how to read the bounce, which comes with time, then you'll have a much easier time having a solid touch after the ball has hit the backboard. This is something you're going to need to practice. Learning how hard you're hitting the ball and figuring out how fast the ball is going to come back at you from the rebound. There is no real way to explain this, but it is something you pick up very quickly with time, yet can be difficult to fully master. The last tip I want to explain at this point in my training is understanding what part of the car you're hitting the ball with. It does seem simple enough, but you should really be paying attention to what part of the car makes contact with the ball when shooting. Each section of the car will send the ball a different direction and at different speeds. To hit the ball with maximum power, you want to hit the ball with the corner of the car or the front bumper. To hit the ball softer, use the underside of the car to direct the ball towards the net. For anyone attempting double touches, you probably already know this. However, it pays to just keep an eye on this part as you might not realize just where you're making contact. Now, for the last 50 hours, and I know that's a bit of a jump here, but I practiced double touches from more of a redirect position. This was much harder. Firstly, you need to take into account the speed the ball is already going before you meet it in mid-air. Then, you need to factor in how fast you're going and the angle at which you're going to hit the ball. In order to train this, I tried a few training packs, and yes, they are all in the description for you. A big thing I found out when I was researching was there are two different thoughts about double touches. In order to maintain control of your car once making the first touch, some people believe you need to air roll through the shot, and others believe you just need a boost because it will keep you steady. I decided to put this to the test. After looking through many comment sections and reading the hundreds of arguments about the subject, then combining this with my own experiments, I've come to the conclusion that both probably work. I personally found that air rolling helped me to stay facing the direction I wanted to travel after the shot. However, I also found that boosting kept me steady, which then allowed me to easily adjust my car. If you want to play it safe, I would say always air roll and start boosting when you think you need that extra push. So, when attempting these types of double touch shots, I suggest coming at the ball with a decent amount of speed, but not supersonic, as you don't want to send the ball speeding towards the backboard while you're still trying to get high enough into the air to reach it. Most of the time, you'll want to get slightly underneath the ball so you find yourself sending the ball towards the backboard in kind of an arcing motion. This means that once you hit the ball, you'll have an easier time continuing to gain height, which then puts you in a better position to read the ball and adjust your car. Doing 100 hours of double touches has been one of the toughest for me. Not because it's the hardest to do, but it's because it's the hardest for me to try to explain. I can't tell you really how to read the ball, because it comes down to time and learning how the ball bounces off the wall. I can't really tell you how to follow up the shot, because it all depends on the speed at which the ball is moving and the angle you have hit the ball. All I can really focus on is the initial setup and the ways to make it easiest for you to train. And so that's what we're going to focus on in the next tutorial section. So, the setup. When approaching from the wall, you want to be matching the speed of the ball and coming at an angle that sends the ball upwards and towards the goal. If this part is difficult for you, go towards the ball completely flat, and then start to hit it at slightly more of an angle after each attempt. Eventually, you'll find what is known as the sweet spot. Once you find that spot, I recommend boosting into the ball a tiny bit as you make that first touch on the wall, so the ball gets slightly more of a pop. Now, if you're setting up from the ground or from a redirect position, there's not a lot I can say really. Make sure you have boost, make sure you know where the goal is and how far away you are from it, and then try to read the movement of the ball through the air. Most of the time, you'll want to perform a fast aerial to get to the ball before anyone else does. Next, we need to focus on that first touch in the air. When you're coming from the wall, it's important to control your speed. Coming towards the ball too fast will cause you to send it into the backboard with too much speed, and you'll have a difficult time getting a second touch. However, not moving fast enough and hitting the ball will cause it to move just slightly closer to the goal and not reach the backboard at all. At the same time, you want to figure out whether or not the flip would put yourself in a good position afterwards. If you flip into the ball and find that it's moving too fast for you to get behind again, then you'll need to just try a simple follow-up touch next time. In these cases, I would think back to what I said about where you are in the field when making that touch in the air. If you're coming from the ground, you'll want to make sure you're getting a somewhat light touch, as you have to remember that you're already traveling with some speed and meeting the ball when it's already moving with pace. By getting a softer, arcing touch, you give yourself an easier time controlling the car after the impact and also more time to position yourself afterwards. This touch requires a lot of trial and error no matter how you get there. If one method doesn't work, try the other and keep on trying from different angles with different speeds until you start to hone in on what works and what doesn't. Lastly is the follow-up. Now, the most important part of the follow-up is trying to get your car going the direction you want to end up as soon as you hit the ball. So, when you make that contact with the ball, you want to be moving your car in the direction you plan to make the follow-up shot. This stops you from having to do a whole lot of moving and twisting to try and adjust afterwards. Another thing you can do to make this follow-up shot easier for yourself is boosting backwards if you're moving too fast. You can always have the back end of your car face more towards the goal and boost a little bit backwards to slow down your speed. This gives you more time to judge where the ball is going to end up and gives you a lot more space to adjust. A big thing I think a lot of people miss out when they're learning is how simple it really is. You don't have to add all the spins and you don't need to make it look fancy. It's an effective shot because it's hard to defend, and if they can't get to the ball quick enough, you can put it straight over top of them. You should really focus on learning to read the ball and how it bounces. Then, focus on how to get your car in the right position with the least amount of effort. Of course, over time you'll naturally just get there faster and faster, which is when you can start to make adjustments and have your car positioned in a way that'll give you more power. But while you're learning the follow-up, focus on just getting into position, lined up with where you think the ball is going to be, and do so with minimal effort. It might not be what you want to hear, that you shouldn't be trying to constantly spin and pulling off crazy moves, but it's what will get you scoring more consistently. All in all, this 100-hour challenge was an interesting one. I learned that a lot of it comes down to understanding how the ball bounces and just general control of your car in the air. If you can read the ball and keep your car floating, you should be fine. Obviously, it's a little more than that, but I think once you start actually putting in a little bit of time and really working on this mechanic, you'll find yourself getting the hang of it very quickly and you'll be able to take it into your gameplay in no time. I really hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, make sure to leave a like as it really helps me out and the channel out a bunch. If you enjoyed this kind of content and you want to see more, make sure to subscribe to the channel to keep up to date with my weekly uploads. Once again, all my social medias are in the description, as well as my Twitch channel where I stream 3 times a week. Anyway, that's all from me. Oh, but once again, vote in the top right hand corner to see what mechanic you want me to put 100 hours into next month. Anyway, that's all. I'll see you next time.